Good afternoon, YouTubers. This is Grumpy Old Ken, effort number 9, covering the period 1949-ish, when I was 10. Don't forget, all this is concerns when I was the age of 10, and you've got to remember, children look at things differently to adults. What do I remember? 1949. A lot of talk in the world of increasingly threats of communism. The Americans were quite obsessed with it. It made no difference to me at all. In fact, I didn't even understand what it was at the age of 10. Likewise, at Wimbledon, the lady played, what was her name? Gussie Moran. Played with Frilly Knickers, and everybody was obsessed with Frilly Knickers. Age of 10, we hadn't got a clue what they were talking about. Now, if you'd have asked us several years later, now that would be a different proposition. 1949, sweets came off ration. That was much more of concern to us. Sadly, it was so important that they had to go back on ration again within the year. I've made no mention of school. I'll do that next time, and then we will swap and do something a little bit different, hopefully. What did we do at the age of 10? What was the interest? Let me have a look. Sweets and whatnot. Hotbrook, during this period, when we were 10, the village slowly but surely was changing, but not that fast. Monday was still washing day. Tuesday was still drying, hanging clothes out day. No washing machines as such, nothing too mechanical. They might have come in elsewhere, but Hotbrook was very slow. What else during the same period? Hotbrook life in general wasn't too exciting. Let me give you examples what we thought. I, for instance, and my relations, we would sit at Granny's at cutting things out and making scrapbooks. Not the world's most exciting occupation, but it did us. We'd play on the organ. There was an organ in the front room at Granny's. Not sure why, because I don't know anybody who was very musical. We used to pull the knobs out and thump the keys and pretend. At 10 it amuses you. At 20 it probably doesn't. But never mind. What else did we do? A lot of our time was spent outdoors, of course, as children. And remember one thing, I was a boy and we tended to do boys' things. So what did boys do at the age of 10? I'm afraid we're into bow and arrows and what they call dobbers, or some people call them gats, other people call them catapults, always firing pebbles and occasionally ball bearings. We never fortunately hit anything, but we pretended we did. Always boys games, I suppose. We tried to catch birds. I remember having a bird trap. You dug an hole in the lawn, not when anybody saw you, mind you. You put a chair base on the top, and then you put a short leg of a chair leaning against it, so the what would you call it, the top of the trap was leaning over it. Inside the trap itself, a hole about 9 inches to a foot deep, we put bread and stuff, and the actual stick, i.e. the leg of the chair holding the, I'm not doing this very well, am I? Holding the trap lid open, was on a string going across the lawn and sometimes up the side of the house into the bedroom window, and we watched. We never did catch, from what I remember, we never did catch anything, a bird. The occasional cat would sort of try and get the food out and screech when we pulled the string and the top fell on it, but cats scrambled out quite easily. Boys' games, as I say, we spent a lot of time in gangs. Wolves Field, a local field, had a shelter, an air raid shelter from the war, and we spent a fair amount of time in there, occasionally holding prisoner of other children and lighting a bonfire in the entrance. Terrible, terrible things to do, really, when you think about it. I remember Lord of the Flies, and as I said, Lord of the Flies, some years ago. Very, very similar, where boys terrorised other boys on an island. It became a classic. At the time I'm talking about, it hadn't come out. What was the man's name? Golding, I think. I'm not sure. Some of you will know, I've no doubt. And what else did we do? The boys' games always tended to be fighting. I suppose in a way we're hooligans. I can remember the headmistress, Mrs. Beresford, once coming past in the car as two groups were setting about each other, myself included, on the street. And as her car vanished into the distance, we were all terrified of what would be said next day. If Mrs. Beresford saw us, she didn't let on. I suppose after a day at school she'd had enough. She lived in a rather nice house on the edge of Derby, on the Ring Road, and we were once invited as a group, the class leaving the year after 1949, and we were very impressed, and it was very good of the lady. We had various people into the chapel, the Moravian Chapel, or the room, the lecture all connected to it. The Harvest Festival sale once a year. Uncle Alf used to sell off the produce with various banter. He was good, but there again, I think he'd been doing it for about 50 years. What else did we have? Mr. Greenwood, a local chemist, some scientist, I suppose, from the Ceylonese. He used to demonstrate glass blowing. We thought that was exciting. Missionaries came from abroad, talking to us, showing us how the Eskimos, where they're from, used to eat seals' eyes. Who else did we have come? One year in the church, I'm trying to think of the year, one possibly 1949, when I was 10, they had Sandy McPherson come and played in the church, well, chapel, and that was exciting for us because he was on the radio a lot. So I'm trying to think, I think he was Canadian, and that was exciting for us. And one year, a cowboy came to the garden fete, Ross Salmon. I don't think he was a real cowboy, but we didn't know that. But we thought it was very exciting. Yeah, summer, once that happened. Nothing very much went off, did it? What else? What else? We went on a trip once to the Peak District. We actually saw Little John's grave. That was a school trip. And we went also on a school trip to New Brighton, which I think is my childhood remembrance most. I think we must have been on the River Mersey, not at the sea, because I can remember men laying on the ground by the water with a concrete on the chest, and somebody hit it with a huge hammer, and split it. Frightening. It didn't seem to harm them. More frightening was some men, a man, you know, several different ones. They would put in a sack and tie it up, and then they would ask for money. They were obviously out of work people, and the idea was that if they got up to £5, he would be okay. But if not, they tied the sack up and they were to throw him in the river. I don't remember him being thrown in the river, so I suppose they got the £5, and we thought it was wonderful. Strange things happen. For us village boys, absolutely amazing. And the most exciting thing I think we'd ever seen. I went on in this particular year as well to the seaside, to Skegness. The first time I ever went, I was taken by an uncle, Uncle Ron. And again, it was the first time. I was 10. Did we go for the day? I can't remember. No, I don't think we did. I think we stayed at a little boarding house. Very excited. People in the village, there was all sorts in the village. One lady was what they used to call deaf and dumb. She had a boy at the school who all of us were friendly together, David. We had one or two ladies that they called Mongol, but nowadays, much more politely and more understandably, they called Down syndrome. Not a bad life for anybody that was handicapped, and several were in the village, because villagers tended to look after their own. Trying to think who else. Mr. Robinson had a peg leg. A lot of doubt as to how he got the peg leg. I don't know that I mentioned before. Some suggested he was up a tree shooting birds and blew his leg off. I doubt it, but an exciting story for us kiddies. What else? Who else? Oh, Mr. Kedwood used to come past the school. I'll talk about that later. With his little plough thing, he used to come past the school, making a pleasant diversion, its noise. And Charles Kinsella, who must have been about 20-ish, who had a bike consisting of two bikes connected. So it was 3 wheels, that's right. No seat, he used to straddle it. Charles was, I suppose, what you might call nowadays autistic. I don't know. But he was a popular sight, especially his bike coming past the school, and again hearing the noise. A lot of characters. Yeah, but nothing extremely exciting. I went into Derby, 4 mile away, for the real first time, I suppose, after I left school. So at this stage, you wandered there all round about Ockbrook, canals, rivers, etc., even at the age of 10, for hours on end. Yeah, a village upbringing. Yeah, coming towards the end of school. So I will do next time, I will talk about school, because that was to bring a big change to an ordinary, I wasn't simple, but you might say we were simple village children. Yeah. I'll finish now, because I've rambled a bit, to say the least. I don't want to correct them. I think it would give a false picture. This made me think, and hopefully it will make some of you, the young ones, wondering what it's all about, the older ones perhaps bringing the odd memories back. I'll stop there, I'll leave it there, and we'll come back next time. Have a nice day. It's cold but very bright enough. Typical winter's day. We're in 2015. I think I'm losing it, but don't tell anybody.